Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Brandon, your trusted realtor, and I'm coming to you with a really great episode. Today, we're going to be spending a little bit of time talking to you about why are houses so expensive. Shouts out to my buddy Lawrence who sent me over this video. I was just sitting in my living room, relaxing. I get this text of this amazing video, and it really does underscore all of the intimate videos that I've shared on my post about the power of renovation loans, land economics, racial inequality and gaps, down payment and closing cost assistance programs. All of that is going to be covered in this report. I'll leave a link down to it in the YouTube so you can check it out yourself. And I'll also be doing commentary as we go through, leaving tidbits of information that you gotta take in. So make sure you dive in. All right, guys, if you haven't done so already, make sure you like and subscribe. Real quick, like, subscribe. Hey, what's going on, folks? All right, so we're going to dive right into the video. It is about 11 or 12 minutes, but it really breaks down all of the pieces that I talked about and that I've been talking about in all of the other channels. As we go through the video, I'll be doing some editorials, so let's dive in.
Harder than ever before.
There's a bidding war for literally every home on the market, every fixer-upper, every house that needs even a lot of work.
My neighbors, actually, because we're on vacation, were calling me and texting me saying, what is going on at your house? There's people in a line down the block. We saw two people having a fight.
So this is actually the norm here in the DC, Maryland, Virginia region, where you will find that that property hits the market, and not only is there an expiration date or a due date for offers, that's usually 4 days later, but there is a line around the block in order for people to see the actual property because it is such a tight inventory. We'll talk more about land economy and overall supply and demand or supply chain economics, and they'll talk more about that in this video.
With city dwellers emigrating to the suburbs and families looking for home offices and bigger yards, prices for the American dream home have skyrocketed. Home prices surged in March 2021, up 13% from the year prior, according to the S&P Case-Shiller Index.
Everybody expected housing to really sort of dry up with the rest of the economy, and in fact, the opposite has happened.
With homeowners unwilling to sell.
One of the also key factors that people didn't take into account is that they thought that housing was going to have the same overall impact as the rest of the economy, that things were going to be a dip. It was such a perfect storm. And again, I talked about how COVID, the reduction in the interest rates, created a unique situation for sellers for this seller market and to create this mass wave. And I think what a lot of people forgot is that the waves of 2007 or prior to 2007, when we had subprime, are gone. So anyone now after that time period with these new federal regulations that are in place who's in the market are usually individuals that are highly qualified. So we created an environment based on regulations that, combined with everything that happened in 2020, COVID-19, et cetera, it creates part of the storm that we're in now for that we call a seller's market.
Record low supply of homes for sale has forced buyers into intense bidding wars. At the end of April 2021, there were only 1.16 million houses for sale in the U.S., down 20.5% from the year prior. Higher costs for land, labor, and building materials have also impacted home builders.
So currently in the United States, we have a huge shortage of housing. We're not producing nearly as much housing as we should be.
We know that home ownership is the primary way of getting into the middle class, but unfortunately, there are many impediments to that are divided by class and particularly race.
With the 30-year fixed mortgage rate hovering.
So I think a lot of people don't really think about the overall structure of getting a home. There's so many different barriers, hurdles, challenges, and opportunities. And whether you want to realize it or not, race and economics have a big part of that. A big part of the issue is that 1/10 of the overall wealth of people of color actually find themselves in a position where they're actually able to afford a home compared to their white counterparts. 74% of Caucasians, I think they'll talk about this later in the video, of Caucasian or white households are homeowners. And even in this lower rate environment, there's been an increase in the overall overlays or requirements for the purchase of a home, and that is adversely impacting households of color. So with all of the things that are going on, you may say, well, what does race have to do with it? It is it does have an impact, especially when you begin to look at the wealth gap and things and accessibilities for different demographics of individuals.
Near a 50-year low and a strong demand pushing prices to all-time highs. Why is the housing supply so meager? Is the U.S. running out of houses?
Good question for y'all to
The
think
U.S. real
about.
estate market is red hot. Since the
We
start
know
of the pandemic,
this.
5% of buyers who purchased a home did so without even physically seeing the home in person.
That's happened a
In
lot for
many
me.
markets, competitive bidding wars are the norm.
There's a bidding war for literally every home on the market, every fixer-upper, every house that needs even a lot of work. It's still just a crazy bidding war.
Our house had 44 offers on it.
With his New York City
Good for
office
you.
shut due to the pandemic and looking for more space for his family, in the summer of 2020, Justin Goldberg and his wife Jessica put their 3-bedroom Bloomfield, New Jersey home on the market. The house listed for $399,000.
My
Remember,
neighbors, actually,
remember
because
that
we were on
number.
vacation, were calling me and texting me saying, like, what is going on at your house? There's people in a line down the block. We saw 2 people having a fight.
With multiple
Crazy.
6-figure offers over the asking price, the house sold for $542,000, over $140,000 more than what the couple was asking for. But the family then found themselves struggling to find a new home.
So this is one of the things that I want to underscore to you is this example underscores the ability for an individual and for families to create wealth. It's one thing to be a real estate agent and want to just sell an individual property. It's another to be able to empower individuals with this information about how the housing market works so you can better arm yourself to be in this type of situation to build wealth for your family.
It was definitely a risk for us to take because we knew that the pandemic wouldn't last forever. His job said you'll be working from home for the foreseeable future and gave up their office space in the city.
With little inventory on the market, the couple signed a 1-year lease on a rental. And on the advice from their realtor, they then modified their house search from looking for a move-in ready home to a fixer-upper.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you,
Being open to
immediately
change
you walk
is
into
important.
the house that you want to buy and you get the feeling. And I got the feeling. And we walked through the house and it was not in good condition. The bones were there, there was nothing structurally wrong with the house. Everything was technically in good shape. Everything that needed to be changed was pretty cosmetic.
Now, if you remember, I recently did a video on renovation loans and rehab loans and the ability to really get into a property, looking and bypassing the aesthetics of it. And if the property is in the location, it has the structure and the price that you need, then really moving forward with it and then really carving out a property that works for you. It's all about being able to get the asset, especially in a market where homes aren't being built every day, all day, in 30 days. And you got to be honest with yourself. Who wants a home that was built in like 15 or 20 days?
But every single room in the house needed changes.
The family of 4 found a 4-bedroom fixer-upper in Randolph, New Jersey, with more space and a bigger yard.
We wanted a bedroom for each of our children, and an extra office or a guest room would have been fantastic.
Although the home was already under attorney review, the couple put in a higher bid and ended up buying the house for $555,000.
So a lot of people don't realize that unless a property is in a pending status, if it is actively under contract, you are in a position to come in and make a higher offer on their property. Now you'll say, how do I know if my offer is higher? You just got to be willing to jump. And you ultimately, at the end of the day, you can make an offer on a property that's under contract and it can be reviewed. And in some cases, a seller can back out of an agreement with the current person they're under contract with and accept another contract if it is a higher offer.
According to experts, a few key steps homebuyers can take to navigate the ultra-competitive market include getting pre-approved for a mortgage,
You heard me
finding
say
a good
this.
real estate agent,
That's
and
me.
figuring out exactly how much you're willing to spend.
Key.
An additional option first-time homebuyers have is to rent the home back to the seller while they look for their new home.
My best advice at this time is if you don't want to overspend, go into a house knowing that you're going to do a little work and you'll probably get it for a better price. And honestly, you can turn it into your dream home.
The US has a housing shortage. With potential sellers unwilling to show their homes during the pandemic, in April 2021, there were 1.16 million US homes for sale, down 20.5% from a year earlier. That lack of inventory has helped push the median price of existing homes higher, up a little over 19% from the previous year to a historic $341,600. One key.
So that's the median home price for properties in a low inventory market. Remember, just about this time last year, we were talking about the median home price for homes being closer to $230,000, $240,000. Significant jump in prices in such a short period of time.
Key factor in that price jump is with fewer, less expensive homes on the market. Sales at the higher end accounted for much of the activity. During that same period, homes were selling in record time too, typically just 17 days on the market. While several large publicly traded companies like NVR, Lennar, Beazer Homes, and Hovnanian Enterprises construct single-family homes, townhouses, and condos, the vast majority of new construction in the U.S. is done by small businesses.
Home building is one of the last real vestiges of small business in America. The overwhelming number of housing, and I want to say it's close to 75 or 80%, is built by small businesses, mostly family-owned, all over the country.
Right.
Those builders have faced serious hurdles in recent years, including pandemic-related supply chain disruptions that have caused a spike in the price of building materials like drywall, steel, and wood.
So this goes out to all of you folks, first-time home buyers who are like, I want new construction and I want this. And then you get into the new construction, you want to start adding things to it because the price is going up, or because you're that type of person who says that I'm going to wait and I'm going to see if prices go down in the market. There are so many things about the real estate transaction. Think of it as a spider's web of interconnectivity. There's so many different forces that are connected outside of you just deciding if you want to buy a home. Supply chain economics is also a huge part of that. One of the biggest costs in the construction of a home is really going to be the labor, and supplies are usually obtained at reasonable cost in order to construct a building or a structure. Once the cheapest portion of the process increases in price, or there's obstruction in getting and transporting those goods and services, you then begin to see spikes in the base price as it relates to not only those goods or service, but sometimes even the labor costs.
The supply chain is in complete disarray right now from COVID.
The poster child for that is lumber.
As of May 2021, lumber prices are up more than 300% from a year ago. According to the National Association of Home Builders, rising lumber prices have added almost $36,000 to the price of a new single-family home. An aging workforce and challenging immigration policies have also led to a shortage of construction workers.
We simply don't have enough people, therefore labor prices are going through the roof.
Labor was a problem for us during the last housing boom and during the recovery, and it's even more of a problem now because in many places it is easier for potential workers not to come back to work and stay on the sidelines.
An even bigger.
So one of the things that underscores what I just said before about that web of interconnectivity is labor or politics. You see how specifically, it's not an issue that they dwelled on, but it's a real issue. Immigration policy plays a part in some of the issues that we're seeing because of the type of workforce or the type of individuals that are customarily doing construction work, and because federal policies trickle down. So this overall impact that we are seeing in real estate and impacting you as consumers directly is, again, a reflection of that web of interconnectivity.
The problem might be the land that houses are built on. As of April 2021, the price per single lot is up 11% compared to last year. Real estate data firm Zonda said new lot supply is down 24% from a year ago.
And the challenge moving forward is infill. How do we invest in cities, into older suburbs? How do we reinvigorate with greater density? Things like accessory dwelling units for your mother-in-law in the backyard. How do we handle people who are challenged with affordable housing? It's all going to mean that we have new development patterns. We need new forms of housing. So yes, we're not building enough housing, and we need to double or triple that rate of housing just to meet natural growth in our economy. And I think we can do that, but we have to do that by thinking of new forms of housing and really changing our zoning.
Home ownership is a catalyst for building wealth with the added benefit of providing safer neighborhoods for families and better schools for kids. But not everyone can afford to own a home.
That's why the home ownership solution is a solution, even now, for many households. The problem is getting into home ownership.
Yes.
In the first quarter of 2021, the home ownership rate in the U.S. was 65.6%. According to the U.S. Census, the home ownership rate for white Americans in the U.S. is almost 74%, compared to 49% for Hispanic Americans and 45% for Black Americans. A major hurdle for many is the down payment. Typically, home buyers put 20% down when taking out a conventional mortgage.
So that's one of the things that I also want to talk about. He said typically, but that is not 100% of the case. DC, Maryland, and Virginia offer very attractive opportunities and programs for residents or first-time home buyers and even recurring home buyers to access home ownership and to fill that down payment gap. Even in some instances, there are programs in the Maryland mortgage program that will assist you with closing costs. There are grants, there are loans, there's a plethora of opportunities, there's suites of programs. And so I'm a firm believer that the process of creating wealth begins with you raising your hand and having that conversation, because you don't know what you do not know. And there are so many opportunities for you to fill this gap and not have to be in a situation where you're putting down 20%, even if you're using a conventional loan.
We know that typically also requires having a certain amount of income. And for a lot of people, that is much easier said than done. For example, for people of color, it is much harder to be able to put down that type of down payment because they may not have the familiar support as people who come from more affluent neighborhoods.
These gaps are exceedingly troubling because the implications of them are very pervasive. Black household wealth is 1/10 it is for white households, and a large portion of that gap is due to the lack of home ownership. Even though
the lack of home ownership is a significant impediment to the creation of household wealth. Just think about that. And if you're making the decision, or if you've decided in your life that I'm going to put off, what you're doing is functionally putting off your growth, you're putting off your wealth creation, and you're adversely impacting your future self. Put your future self first.
Mortgage rates are at historic lows. There's been a ratcheting up of the qualifications that are required to borrow to become a homeowner, and that has impacted minority households more.
This is important. So you've heard me talk about this before. One of the biggest impediments, and they're going to talk about this in this video, is student loan debt, or overall DTI. When a mortgage lender is looking at you to qualify you for a mortgage, they're looking at your debt to income ratio. And part of that is really having a true indication about how you are spending yourself. There's one meme that I recently saw, or that maybe it was a quote from Kanye West, where it says that young people are more interested in looking rich or looking wealthy than actually being wealthy. Maybe it's not Kanye West, whoever said it, but it was poignant and it stuck out to me, because there's no need to put yourself and spend unnecessarily, because what happens is, even though you may think you can afford it, the government sets a standard for what the maximum amount of debt they will permit you to have. That's across student loans, that's across personal entities, personal lines of credit, that's across car payments, installment loans. All of these play a factor in how a lender looks at your debt to income ratio. And when you begin to teeter above 45%, the only answer is reduce your debt, which means having a lot of money up front to pay those things down, like credit cards or outstanding revolving debt, or earn more money. So if you are already having troubles with the 80 or 90 or $100,000 that you're making now, how are you going to come up with an additional 20, 30, 40, $50,000 to add to your income in order to offset that percentage, right? To reduce your debt to income percentage. So there's two answers here. It's either reducing, paying down your debts, what you have, or making more money. And those are just really the two answers. And for a lot of minority households, this becomes a challenge.
The majority households.
Buyers paying less than a 20% down payment are often subject to primary mortgage insurance. That can range from an additional $30 to $70 per month for every $100,000 borrowed, according to Zillow. Student debt is another barrier many first-time home buyers face. According to the National Association of Realtors, the average home buyer in 2020 carried $30,000 in student debt.
When I talk to young people, a lot of times they are trying to pay their rent versus their grocery, or they're trying to pay their student loans.
Single-family zoning, pervasive across much of the U.S., limits the number of units that can be built on a plot of land, making it difficult for families to afford certain communities.
Single-family zoning has really been a barrier for lower to moderate income people to be able to live in particular neighborhoods, because single-family zoning bans any type of home being built or any type of multi-family home or any type of detached home from being built, which is a huge barrier to people who are just trying to start off.
But that may be starting to change. In 2019, Oregon became the first state to pass legislation banning single-family zoning in most of the state. Around the same time, Minneapolis became the first big American city to end the practice.
So one of the major impediments to our shortage of housing, in addition to the land economics and the supply chain, is that we have a lot of communities in this country that don't want to have affordable housing. They don't.
So I'd be interested in you guys sounding off and leaving your comments there. There's arguments, pros and cons on each side of the debate regarding affordable housing. Ultimately, the discussion here is whether or not communities, and historically there have been communities, land designations for communities that to only build single family homes on designated plots. Zoning prevents those properties from being subdivided and being used for multifamily homes. Sometimes an investor wants to come in and build condos or multifamily units, 5, 6, 7, 11 unit apartments. But some communities restrict that based on land regulations. I'd be interested in hearing from you. Sound off in the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Should there be a move to either create more multifamily units in places where single family homes generally reside? Should we get rid of that practice altogether? Or are you in favor of allowing builders and communities to decide if they want single family homes? What are your thoughts?
Want to have anything other than large suburban estates, if you will. And I think we need greater exercise of federal policy over these local communities that are utilizing exclusionary zoning to really grossly impact the provision of affordable housing.
The federal government is taking steps to increase affordable housing too. In April 2021, the Biden administration announced a $5 billion plan providing financial incentives to push local governments to allow multifamily dwellings in neighborhoods that are currently restricted to single-family homes.
This is a market for housing, for home ownership, for those who wish to get into home ownership and those who are homeowners. People are expanding their homes, they're renovating their homes, they're building out new backyards. So this is a homeowner's economy. There's never been a stronger economy for homeowners than now. And as a contribution to the overall economy, home ownership is more important than ever.
All right, guys, so I will leave a link down to this video if you want to check it out for yourself. But I really wanted to share this with you. Shouts out to my buddy Lawrence, who shared this with me earlier this morning. No intention on making a video, but I thought this information was so ready, so poignant, and really validated that, kind of know my stuff. So anyways, guys, if you haven't done so already, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you can stay tuned in and in tune to the latest and greatest realty here in the DMV and everywhere else. My name is Brandon. I'm your trusted realtor, and I look forward to being your resource for all of your real estate needs. Take care and talk to you soon.